Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pack and Clint show here on Total Coverage Sports. Really appreciate you guys being here. We got our good friend Joshy here on the show. He's going to join us. Today we're going to be talking about some of the games that happened this past week. We'll talk Georgia, Texas, obviously. We'll talk Alabama, OU, and then we're going to dive right into the games that are coming up this week. We're going to talk Texas, Arkansas. We'll talk about USC, Oregon. We'll go through a couple of the other big games that are this week, including OU, Mizzou, and then maybe one or two other games. But we're really excited for you guys to be here. Please like, subscribe, comment, retweet. Go follow Ghost on Twitter. Follow Total Coverage on Twitter, and follow them on YouTube. We really appreciate your support, especially right now because basketball is starting up. So you got a lot of different things you can get from Total Coverage. I know they do a really good job with all that stuff. So definitely check them out. Before we jump into this Texas and Georgia game, I got to ask you guys, how you feeling?
I mean, I don't think I could feel any worse about this. I mean, look, I'm in the position where, I know Clint and I were gassing each other up in DMs, talking about how, we were under the impression we were going to come out and do really well. It just feels to me that we're further off than I thought, which it just, for lack of a better term, that's just a kick right in the gut, it felt so close, yet we knew it was so far. Getting out coached, I think, was, not good. Not good. A lot of questions were raised.
Definitely been a lot better. That's all I'll really say about that.
So we can then just go right into the game. I'll let you two go first because I'll probably take a decent amount of time just to break down from a Texas and Georgia side what because I watched the tape yesterday and I watched it a little Sunday and I talked to some people on a couple different staffs about that game. So I'll have a little bit more of a detailed film review for you guys today. So if you two want to break down your thoughts and then I'll go right after you guys. But if either one of you want to take it away, please feel free.
So, one of the things that has been very frustrating, I think, about the Sarkisian era just in general is undisciplinedness and the timing of the undisciplinedness. For some reason, I think it was last year, the year before, both 23 and 24, we were in the 90, I think we were ranked 91st, 92nd in penalties. Right. And so this year, one would think that the emphasis would be on eliminating mental mistakes. And what happens? We actually somehow get worse. Now, obviously, this is a byproduct of having a younger team, right? That's just kind of what this is. But we saw multiple times where these penalties and mental mistakes and these errors killed us. I mean, look, we beat Washington if we don't fumble twice and shoot ourselves in the foot with multiple false starts out of the right tackle position. Last year, we had the same thing where we killed drives because Cam Williams just would simply false start at the most inopportune times, right? And so when I'm sitting here and looking at the difference between our program, which right now is an ascending program, but we obviously have there's a glass ceiling that we have yet to break through, and the elite of the elites, and I think there are two right now, which is Georgia and Ohio State. I don't really think there's anyone else in that echelon. What's the thing that is keeping us back? Is it the blue chip talent? No. Is it, I guess, if you want to call it formations, any sort of systems we're running? Probably not. What the thing is, it's the ability to make the big play or the ability not to shoot yourself in the foot, which these big teams don't do. There was not a single time where Kirby Smart's team shot itself in the foot on Saturday. Not a single time. Yet we did it 9 to 10 times. And you know what? Everyone can talk about the SEC refs and how they may have favored Georgia, which I didn't think they did. There was a couple ticky-tacky calls. But what do? We had the average number of penalties what we have a game, which is like 6 or 7. So, it is a frustrating thing to watch this happen time and time and time again. And, we can obviously talk about this more later, but I think this is a byproduct of really having a head coach who is nightlining essentially as a offensive play caller. Like, you can't do it all. You have to find a way to delegate these things. And Sark hasn't done that yet. And I think that's become a problem. But, I've talked enough. Clint, you go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it was just all of us shooting ourselves in the foot the entire day. You can even go back to the first drive where you could really start seeing the signs where on that third down, you had the crosser to a Wingo where if he catches that, he pretty much can get a touchdown on that. I mean, he had a lot of open grass right there. And if not that, he gets inside the 5-yard line. And then you just see that through the rest of the night. There's that one drive where you have three passes that were on a dime from Arch, and all 3 were dropped. I mean, it was just one of those games where it's just so frustrating to watch because you have opportunities, you have chances to get some momentum to possibly take a lead at some point. If you're going back to that 4th and 1 that we didn't get a stop on, or that 4th and 5 that Colin Simmons jumped off sides, it was just little things like that it was just us shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, I'm going to give my props to Georgia. That Mike Bobo absolutely took Pete Kwiatkowski to the woodshed on Saturday. I mean, that was probably one of the worst games that I've seen Pete Kwiatkowski get outcoached in. You can't stop Georgia, and me and Pac talked about it on last week, where they're going to try and get what Texas gives them, a lot of underneath routes, a lot of short crossers and everything. When you're playing 8 yards off the ball almost every single play on defense, you're not going to be able to stop those routes. You're not going to be able to get any stops, just that plain and simple. I mean, that's why they were getting, like, for the first couple drives, 7 to 8 yards of play. I mean, when you're letting that happen, you can't do much. Now, yes, we managed to stay in the game all the way into the start of the 4th quarter, but when you are undisciplined and you have the momentum, you have them on 2 4th downs where you can possibly stop them. I don't think Kirby Smart was going for that on 4th and 5. That could just be me. I don't know. Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah,
There was no way. No, he knew what we were going to do. He's played us 2 separate times. He knows how undisciplined this team is. He's watched it before. He knows Colin Simmons tries and jump snaps. So what is he – and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about knowing, if you're going to – you can't split your time, right? Bobo knew it, and Kirby knew it. They knew that Colin Simmons has been jumping snaps. There was someone up in the box, I guarantee you, who said, yeah, Colin Simmons trying to time up all of these snaps. And they got him at the worst possible time.
Yeah. But yeah, if you stop them, you still have that momentum. I mean, we had so much momentum on that defensive drive before that jump. And once that jump happened, it just all collapsed from there. You had that London Humphreys touchdown where it was wide open, where we were just having busting coverage the entire night. I mean, we had a good series of stops after those first 2 drives where we didn't let them get any points at all. But once that happened and they ended up getting that onside was where I knew the game was over. I knew we had no chance to come back into it. I don't care if we were going to get a stop. Our offense was not moving consistently enough for me to even have any confidence that we were going to win that game. And just seeing it collapse like that, and for us to be from only down by 4 going to the 4th to losing by 25 points, statistically, in talking terms of points, that was the worst loss in the Steve Sarkisian era at Texas. That was worse than the Arkansas loss in 2021. That was worse than the Iowa State loss in 2021. That was worse than any loss we've ever had in this time here at Texas. And yes, they're a top 5 team. They're a good team. But you can't be going into those games and be losing like that and just have a total and utter collapse. I mean, you see our secondary recently. Our secondary has been downright, I would just say, horrible. It's been really bad. And you could point to certain coaches. You could talk maybe Dwayne Akina has something to do with that. But I think at the end of the day, it's as much coaching staff as it is players. And I'm just going to say that the one positive I'll take away is Arch played good. Arch played really solid. I think if anybody blames Arch for that loss, they didn't watch the game and they don't know what they're talking about. But, yeah, that's all I have to say to that. And I don't know. Hopefully we can win these last 2. That's all I'll say.
Well, first, the Arch thing. I don't think anyone would say that. I don't think anyone would accuse Arch of playing poorly. Even the interception that he had, there was a. Go ahead.
I've seen people blame. I've seen people blame him on Twitter.
That's the dumbest thing. That's insane. But I literally watched a cornerback on Georgia. I literally watched that cornerback pull DeAndre Moore's chest down. Was it overthrown? Absolutely, but he did that, which that is a clear, and that's the definition of holding or pass interference, right? When the shoulder turns, when you pull and the shoulder turns, that's a PI. Nevertheless, the Akina thing, and I kind of want to talk about this because you guys are obviously going to be more knowledgeable to hear about this. We've been talking about the Akina thing, him coming back in, being secondary coach. But what's weird is this is not the type of coverage he calls. That's a man-to-man guy. So if we're playing 10 yards off basically a cover 3 the entire time, right? Obviously, there's some sort of disconnect there where Akina's obviously not getting the play calls that he wants, because I'm sure he wants their guys to go in man, unless we don't have the guys to do man coverage. So what is it? Someone explain to me, because I'm kind of confused here.
Yeah, this feels like a good time for me to jump in and kind of give you guys my thoughts. And I'll start with that question. So it is a PK thing. That's just what he's done. If you go back and you watch him going back to Washington, he's a pretty heavy cover 3 guy. He wants to play off coverage. It's like the prototypical bend don't break defense. It's kind of what he does, and he hopes that at some point he'll get a sack or he'll get a tackle for loss. He'll get a holding penalty. He'll do something where he'll get you into a 3rd and long and he'll get you off the field. But I mean, just in general with PK, and I've had this comment for multiple years now, I think if you're patient against a defense of his, you can score 30 points because he doesn't throw a lot at you. He's not super complex. I think anyone who watches him 3 times knows what he's going to call on almost every play. You can tell by alignment. There's not a lot of disguising. There's not a lot of dynamicness to it. He's very static in terms of what he's going to do. And it's like Clint said, we talked pretty long on the show last Tuesday about what Texas was going to have to do defensively. I mentioned on first down there were 3 things that Texas had to do. They had to be able to do a good job of fitting the run internally. They had to do a good job of striking guys. They had to do a good job of shedding guys. They had to do a good job of peeking. They had to know where the ball was. The linebackers had to do a good job of reading their keys and understanding their right gaps. So a lot of the times they were stack fitting, they weren't plugging. So just getting your feet in the gap and reading the back or reading the indicator. There was a lot of different things that they had to do in terms of the run game that aren't super hard. And then the second thing was they had to do a good job in the screen game, which I thought they did. I thought honestly they did a good job in the run game too, up until the 4th quarter, where they just got leaned on because you could tell they were gassed. And then the third thing was you couldn't give Stockton free access throws. You had to make him throw into tight windows, and you had to make him play a little bit more quarterback than throw and catch. And Texas did not do that on the first 2 drives, and it was 14-3, I think, after the first quarter. Right? You can't do that against a team like Georgia, especially when we all know they get better as the game goes on. This is one of those teams where you have to jump on them early. You can't be down 2 scores in the first quarter against Georgia. You'll 100% lose that game. And I thought the defense played fine. To me, I don't think Texas did a whole lot differently on the next 6 drives where they got stops. To me, that looked a lot like Georgia slowing the game down. I don't think that was really a Texas defense thing. I think that was very much a Georgia offense thing. So I don't think they played particularly well. Anthony Hill had a good game, and Joshy mentioned it. It's a really big mistake by Colin Simmons on the 4th and 5, because they're not going to go for it. Georgia doesn't go for it. They've done this now 4 or 5 games in a row. They did it against Alabama at some point. They did it against Auburn. When they're hard counting, when they have like a 4th and 3 plus from their 38 to their opponent's 38, they're not going for it. They'll take Stockton out there. They'll go a hard count on 2, and they'll take a delay a game, and they'll punt the ball. That's just what they do. And this is now 4 weeks in a row that a team has jumped and it's really poor discipline by Texas. Yeah, but you have to give Georgia credit because at some point, when you're consistently getting teams to jump, you're doing something right. So good on them. I
Well, is I mean, like, sure, it's right, but that's more of a reflection of the other team, right? Like, that's more of a reflection of just being undisciplined. I mean, this is kind of the shit that I was talking about earlier, where if you split your time as an offensive coordinator and a head coach, you're going to be mediocre at both, right? Jack of all trades, master of none, right? A normal head coach would have seen Georgia line up in that 4th and 5, right where you're talking about. And you know what they probably would have done? They would have sat there, yelled a timeout. They would have put a timeout there and regrouped everyone. That to me seems like the most logical position that would have been done, because they're saying, hey, look, they're going to try and get you to jump off sides. Stay there, stay the course, right? This is kind of my thing that I get, concerned about going forward. Is there are certain characteristics that, or let me say, certain, ticks, right? That a head coach or someone should be able to see, that, these tendencies that these teams keep doing. And like, it feels like we're just not doing that, specifically with Georgia, right? We know that they were going to run some sort of crazy stuff on special teams. We knew that they were going to do that. And Sark even said, yeah, we practiced for the possibility of having this onside kick happen. And like, do you really believe that? I mean, do you?
Yes, I know they did.
Okay. So then we were just caught off
Yeah, I
guard.
mean you can see that they would have like Texas should have. It was just bad execution. Like you can go watch and you can see like two false steps by two of the guys on the line. Like that's just really bad execution by Texas, but they they were lined up fine for it. Like that's just one of those things where you don't execute. Going back to the point, yeah, I mean you can take some of the blame and put it on the coaches, but I mean this happened to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin's not their offensive coordinator. That's Charlie Weiss. He's the one who calls plays. This happened to Florida, and Florida's been pretty good about not doing stupid stuff outside of USF. This happened to Auburn. This happened to Bama. Happened to Tennessee. It happens to a lot of teams. You do need to give some credit to. You got to give some credit to Georgia there. But it is just one of those things where you got to make plays when it matters, and Texas routinely does not. And if you want to have a comment about that being a big thing with Sarkisian, I think that's totally fine. That's probably another conversation for another day, just because you can get into a lot of different things with that. And we don't have time for that today. But if that's a criticism you want to throw at Sarkisian, I think that's fine. And then on the other side of the ball, when Texas was on offense, Clint and I talked about it. I showed you guys a couple different pressures that they ran against Mississippi State. And I told you they had morphed into a 5 and 6 man pressure team. They were doing it on first and second down in order to not only stop the run, but when you passed it, put the opposing team's quarterback in conflict. And they did that a lot to Texas, right? The first two plays, they brought a linebacker off the edge, and on the second play, they brought both of the linebackers. And I told you guys that they had a family of coverages called eyes coverages. You saw them run that on the second play of the game. And then on the first play, you saw a cover zero look where they were playing man free with a cover one no rat. That's what they call cover zero. And so they kind of did what I thought they would do. Um, but this is just one of those things where I keep saying it. Georgia and specifically Schumann and Smart have, and they know they know Texas's protection rules really really well. You can tell that they understand it, that they're very comfortable with it because I think this is probably, and someone with PFF or someone who went and manually charted it would have to tell me, but I would bet this is their highest pressure total of the year because
It was.
they,
It was.
yeah, they understand this scheme really well, and that's another thing you can get on Sark for. But you also have to give a lot of credit to Schumann and Smart. I've said for a really long time now that's the best scheme in the country. It's not very close. That it's the smartest defensive room in terms of minds in the country. So this stuff can happen. You got to give Georgia a lot of credit in terms of what they did defensively. I thought their corners played really well, which was a question, and I thought they did a good job of protecting their safeties. Also, it didn't help that Texas played a lot of 12 and a lot of condensing,
Which
which
is exactly what we said they cannot do, right?
Yeah, this is the last thing I'll say about this. Yeah, that was one of my key points on Tuesday. Whenever I was talking, I want to see more spread and less 12 and condensed. And of course, the first drive, I see 12 personnel, and it was just I don't know.
yeah, and
We just
so
don't have the
that's
tight
the
end to block it, right? We just don't have the tight ends to do the blocking on that. It's crazy, crazy.
yeah, I said Clint and I talked about it last week. I don't think you can play 12 against Georgia. It just hasn't worked against them all year. The teams that have had success have been more spread. Alabama was really heavy. They were a spread football team against Georgia. Florida, when they had their success, was mostly out of 11. Ole Miss was almost entirely an 11. Tennessee's an 11 football team. Um, I thought that was pretty. That was probably the thing that, from a Texas perspective, offensively, you'd be the most frustrated about because outside of that, I told you guys on Tuesday, I don't think Texas is going to have a lot of success offensively. There was a reason I picked Georgia by 2 scores, and it felt like all the things that I thought Texas struggled with, Georgia took advantage of, and that's what really good teams do, and that's kind of what Texas is not. They're not a very good team. They don't execute consistently. They miss assignments all the time. They're not schematically complex defensively. They're one of the easier teams to play against right now in the SEC, and um, that's just kind of what this team is, and we can kind of leave it at that and move on to a team that is schematically complex, and that's OU, who, once again, another game that Clint and I really, really nailed. I talked about on Tuesday how I thought Venables was going to send a lot of 5 and 6 man pressures, and how I thought that what LSU did was what a lot of teams have to do if they want to stop Ty Simpson, and that's send a lot of pressures and just heat him up, keep hitting him, and eventually you'll create some turnovers because it doesn't matter if you're Tom Brady. If you're getting hit 30 times and you don't know where pressure's coming from, eventually you're going to throw an interception or you're going to have a fumble or something's going to go wrong. And that's what happened to Simpson. And that's pretty much the exact reason that OU won. Their defense created so many short fields for them. I think the longest scoring drive for OU on Saturday was 41 yards. So when your defense is giving you consistent short fields, when they give you a touchdown. They give you another really short field off special teams, and you get basically 17 points off turnovers. You're going to win most games, especially when special teams is a total disaster. Um, so I thought OU kind of did exactly what they had to do in terms of the game plan, um, which isn't surprising. Venables is one of the best out there. He's like a supercharged Blake Baker, speaking of which. Yeah. So, I mean, I thought, to me, I don't think it changed much of my opinion on either team. OU is going to go where whatever the defense takes them. If the defense creates turnovers, if they can get the offense short fields, they can win a lot of games. If the defense doesn't play well, or if the defense isn't creating a lot of turnovers, it's going to be really ugly to watch because the offense still isn't very good. They still can't run the ball. Mateer is basically a game manager now, maybe a little bit worse than that, where you're just trying to have him not lose you a game, not make a stupid turnover. But it was a really good win for OU. For Bama, it doesn't change much for me because you're not going to play many teams like OU. And honestly, when I watched the tape, I thought their offensive line did a decent job in terms of getting push and creating running lanes for their backs. Their backs are just very, very average.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
that's DeMarco Murray, right? I mean, DeMarco Murray hasn't been a good running back coach for however long he's been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, when you look at the game from Saturday, you would think if you just looked at the box score, like a lot of people do, that Alabama would have taken them to a woodshed. I mean, the total yardage between the both teams was almost double for Bama what it was for Oklahoma. But what helped Oklahoma win this game was their ability to create turnovers, the ability to make plays on special teams, their ability to just not shoot themselves in the foot, which is what Bama did multiple times. I mean, you have that first pick six from Eli Bowen, which was, I think, like close to 90 yards, if I'm correct. You had that play. You had Ryan Williams drop or muff a punt, and Oklahoma get that in short field position. And it's just things like that when you play a really good defense like Oklahoma has and a really good play calling defense like Brent Venables. You can't make those like mistakes because they're just going to take advantage of those. Even if they may not have the best offense, they can score in those short field positions. I mean, they have one of the best kickers in the country in Tate Sandell, and they'll at least get 3 points if you give them that short field position. And those 3 points were differences in the game. I mean, yeah, he made multiple field goals, but it was 23-21. He misses one of those. Alabama likely wins the game. But yeah, I think Ty Simpson overall, even though he did have multiple turnovers, I think he may have had one. Either way, he had a really good day despite the loss. But it just goes back to Alabama not being able to run the ball. It goes back to John Mateer just not making mistakes that costed OU the game. And I just think OU overall played a really good game. And that's what helped them win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much else to add on that. I just what Brent Venables has done from year 2 or year, I guess 30, year 4 has kind of been nothing short of miraculous. We were all laughing at the beginning of the season, at least I was, about hiring Jim Nagy because I thought Jim Nagy was basically the first nail in the coffin for Brent Venables, considering the fact that Venables wasn't the guy picking his roster, it was a general manager. And it turned out to be a fairly good decision. I mean, Brent Venables just focuses on football, right? I mean, he gets to do that. I really think that those 2 freshman offensive linemen they have, obviously Michael Fasusi, who, I hate thinking about how good he would have been for us. But, I mean, Beanbaugh knows how to coach an offensive line. And they do just enough to win. I mean, it's really impressive, honestly. I think OU is actually probably one of the more surprising teams. I'd say probably the most surprising. And that defense is nuts. I mean, they're nasty. Obviously, I think once you start getting into the secondary, you're going to have a little, they're going to have a little bit more trouble. I don't see them going past the semifinal, or not the semifinals, the quarterfinals when they go to the playoff. But, I think they've had a really good season nonetheless. And, this is another big win. Kalen DeBoer is 1 loss away from being out of the playoffs. So, if that happens, what are the sirens like in Tuscaloosa? What's going on there?
Yeah, they'd be pretty loud. Bart, we're not gonna talk too much on the A&M game, just because of time stuff today. But if you do want my thoughts, or Clint's thoughts, just DM us. I'll give a really quick 1-minute recap. I feel like this was just the Marcel Reed game. I've never been very high on him. I know the NFL is not high on him at all. And in stuff like this, he's wildly erratic in terms of his ball placement. I think he's got some decision-making stuff he's got to work through. I think he lacks touch too. But it's also the beauty of what Mike Elko can do. He's really, really smart defensively, and I thought he created a lot of havoc in the second half. And credit to Colin Klein for figuring some stuff out in the second half. That's what championship teams do. I've said I've said it for like 3 weeks now. I think A&M's the second or third best team in the country. And the first half they didn't look like it, but the second half they steamrolled South Carolina. So credit to A&M. That's all I'll say about that game. And we can move on to some of our previews. We're going to start with USC and Oregon. This will be at 2:30 kickoff Central Time in Eugene. I believe it's the CBS game of the week. I'll just really quickly give my thoughts before I let you guys go, and then I'll take a little bit more time. This game pretty much just comes down to me for if USC can stop the run. If USC can stop the run, we have a game. If they cannot stop the run, they'll lose by 20.
Clint, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just gonna be very quick. I personally don't think the game's going to be very close. I think from everything I've seen this year from both teams, don't get me wrong, USC's a good team. USC's been able to win these games. They've been able to win the close games. For example, the game versus Nebraska or the game versus Iowa, which were both very close games. They found ways to win. I think Oregon is just too good. I think Oregon will, on the ground, will have a really good day. I think Dante Moore will continue to play good, and I think Oregon will find ways to stop Jay Mailava. I'm going to take about a 38-23 win.
Okay, so I'm alone in this one. I think USC wins. I'm going outright. This is a 9.5 point spread. I'm going to go USC outright. I don't like Oregon at all. I really don't like. Yeah, I think they are built well for the line of scrimmage. I am curious though because I think that they've essentially skated by on the fact that they haven't really played anyone. And like while we can make the claim, oh, Iowa was a good win, I'm not there with them. I'm not there with that yet. They're vastly superior talent wise to Iowa, and they barely escape by the skin of their teeth. I think USC is getting hot. I think this is kind of finally the roster that I think Lincoln Riley was thinking about having, 4 or 5 years ago whenever he first got to USC, or at least a skeleton of what it is. So, and I just think Malachi Lemon's unreal. And I do think he's going to, obviously Dorian Barney versus him is going to be the big matchup in the secondary there. I think I'd just like USC a little bit more in this game. I think Oregon is going to be a 2-loss team who people are going to be talking about next week being on the edge of being eliminated. So give me USC 34-31.
Yeah, so just to give I'll spend 2 or 3 minutes on this. So for one, when USC is on offense, watch for a lot of 3-high from Oregon. If you don't know what 3-high is, it's just having 3 safeties. Oregon's expanded their 3-high package quite a bit this year. They started out from mostly just a mint 3-high, which if you don't know what mint is, go and watch our other shows from a couple weeks ago. Pretty much any show I've talked about what mint is. Go watch last week's show. I go into depth about what mint is and how it works. It's just a front, basically, but they started out in mint 3-high. Now they've gone to a traditional 4-down 3-high. They'll play a heads front. They'll play double 3 techniques and even front. They'll play an over front and under front. They'll do what they call flex and fight fronts, which are just different ways of setting the tight, which is the 3 technique side. So they might set it to the back. They might set it away from the back. They might set it to the tight end. They might set it away from the tight end. A lot of that depends on what zone scheme you're getting. If you do see them in their 4-down fronts, expect to see a lot of them setting it away from the tight end because USC runs a lot of counter and a lot of gap scheme, and you really want to close that front side A gap. You really want to close both B gaps, but it's really important you close that front side B gap because that's pretty much where all conflict starts in terms of RPO game and stuff like that. And USC does run a lot of gap scheme based RPOs. So watch for that in terms of what Oregon's going to do in their front. They're going to play a lot of 3-high to try to take away the deep over, the post route. They play a lot of zone match Tampa too, so you'll see that a decent amount. And then whenever they're in 2-high, expect to see a lot of bracket coverage. They haven't played a lot of it this year. You can go look up 7 bracket or 5 Indian. You'll find an install of it, and that's what I'm referring to here. But I'm not going to go into the full specifics of the coverage. But expect to see that on Saturday, and then you'll get your base quarters, which is just min 4 mod, heads 4 mod. Again, go look it up. So that's what you're going to see from Oregon defensively. They're not going to do a lot of things in terms of that's unique, just because this is kind of USC's a very creative run game, but they're not a team that's going to force you to create new rules for your coverages and whatnot. So that's what's going to happen when USC's on offense. I do think it'll be really interesting to see Brandon Finney versus Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon. That'll be a really fun matchup to watch. Although I don't know how much man coverage Oregon's actually going to play. They sprinkle it in. They're pretty heavy quarters and Tampa 2 team right now. So you might not see a lot of cover one. And if you do, it's probably because they're running a 5-man pressure, they're simming. That's traditionally what they do a lot of. And then on the other side, when USC is on defense, I would really advise you guys, if there is a rush total, take the over on Oregon because USC gets displaced all the time. They do not do a good job of anchoring. They really, really struggle to keep the line of scrimmage tight. You'll see a lot of displacement there. You'll see them really, really struggle to get off blocks. This is not a good run defense at all. You could see it on the TV copy. It's really egregious on the All-22. So it's going to start with that. USC, if it were me, and I'm not a guy who really likes pressuring a lot. Coaches who know me know that. I'm not a guy who's ever been a really heavy pressure coach. I think USC has to send their linebackers a lot, whether that's through cross dogs, whether that's sending, which if you know what a cross dog is, it's just imagine there's a linebacker here and a linebacker here, and my nose is a gap. So this linebacker is going this way and this linebacker is going this way. That's why it's a cross dog, because they're crossing directions. So I would expect to see a lot from that from USC. If they don't, I think they're in a lot of trouble. I think they're going to have to blitz their linebackers a lot in order to get run stops. But like just all of that said, USC is not a better team than Oregon. I don't disagree with Joshy. I think there is a path for USC to win, and it comes with them being able to run the ball and Jaden Maeva making enough plays. But this is a really bad matchup for USC. So if you did want to take money, I would encourage you to take the Oregon cover, and we can move on to our next game, which is probably going to take up almost all of the show, which is going to be Texas and Arkansas. We may give a minute or two at the very end to OU, Mizzou, and any other game that pops up in chat, but I'll let you two start because I've been talking for a while. Any thoughts on this Arkansas team?
Go ahead and take it, Clint.
Yeah, so from for this matchup, I mean, obviously we know Arkansas has not been great this year. They're 2-8. They can't find ways to finish any game for that matter. They won their first two games and then just been on an 8-game losing streak ever since. But this team isn't a bad team at all. I mean, I saw a statistic earlier where it said if you were to reverse the outcome of every one-score game that they've been in, they would be 8-2 right now, which I think is a very wild stat that they're 2-8 and they've lost all these one-score games. You have the Memphis game 32-31, Ole Miss 41-35, LSU, Mississippi State, A&M, Tennessee were all one-score games, and I mean they're not a bad team. They just on defense they're really bad. They can't stop a nosebleed at all. Their offense is very good though. Taylor Green is the only thing that's really keeping them in these games. Total for over 2,500 yards this year. He has a very good playmaking ability. He has the ability to extend plays to really just create plays. He has a lot of he's very accurate. I think he makes bad decisions a lot of the time though. I think he can take too many sacks, but I think this seems very good. Mike Washington at running back, he's been very solid all year. Just short of eclipsing 1,000 rushing yards. Then they have Omega Blake, Raylan Sharp, and Rohan Jones being their leading receivers. I don't know if I have too much to go into this game. I think Texas will win just because I don't trust Arkansas's defense to help them win any games, just to be completely frank. I think I wouldn't be shocked if it was a one-score game. And I think I'm going to take that just because I think from what we've seen the past 2 weeks or past 3 weeks, to be fair, I don't know that I have necessarily a lot of trust anymore in us to stop explosive offenses like that, especially in the secondary. I mean, you see against Mississippi State, at the end of the game, we were able to start getting a lot of stops, but our secondary was just getting absolutely plastered against Mississippi State. Our secondary at the end of the Vanderbilt game wasn't able to hold up, and it was just getting exposed. And then you saw, obviously, in the Georgia game at the very end, and even throughout most of that game it was. So, me personally, I think it will be close. I'll take Texas to win, though. I can't see us losing this game. I can't really see a world where we do. I'm going to go about probably like a 42-36 game. although I'd love for us to blow them out, I don't think that we have the capability to necessarily, and I don't think we will.
Yeah. Arkansas is always one of those teams, and everyone knows they're going to get someone at some point. They've done it every single year for the past 4 or 5 years, right, under Sam Pittman. Obviously, Sam Pittman's gone, but this is still pretty much his roster. Bobby Petrino is one of the better play callers, and as we've kind of talked about, this is one of the most explosive offenses. Now, this is kind of a tale of two teams, right? It's really, really fun offense and a just absolutely horrid defense. So the question that I have and that I've been wrestling with is, given that Arkansas more likely than not at some point will bite someone, which unfortunately it wasn't LSU, given with the fact that we know kind of what we are on defense and that we are just kind of explosive play bandits, coupled along with the fact that our offense kind of sputters, I'm like at a 60-40 right now that we win, to be quite honest with you. We could come out really pissed off, which, maybe the MO, if we see that, then I feel good, right? And there's about, I'd say, a 20% chance of us blowing them out, a 40% chance of us winning. Let's call it 45% chance of us winning close, and then 35% chance of them winning close, right? I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and say, just for the sake of me putting it out there, 38-31. And this is not a confidence in me in Texas type thing. This is a confidence in Arkansas being able to lose in the most stupid and ridiculous manner. Look, I mean, like, these guys are going to come play, right? They hate us. Petrino wants some sort of job next year. Couple that with the fact that we're coming off a loss where, frankly, we're kind of reeling, given all the media narratives. Put the fact that Ryan Wingo's probably not going to play. Anthony Hill may play. I mean, look, there's a lot of question marks on our side that I'm not comfortable with in this particular game. I think the spread I wrote was 9.5 Texas's way. If I'm betting this, which I may, I'd take Arkansas to cover. I think that may be the easiest bet of this weekend.
Ryan Wingo got injured.
Yeah. He re-injured his thumb.
Great.
Yeah, so it's a tough one, just because I think one of the things that they have really done a good job of attacking is man coverage. If you go watch the teams if you go look at the logs of the teams that they've had a lot of success against, it's A&M, it's Ole Miss, it's Tennessee, it's Mississippi State.
Ooh.
Those are pretty heavy cover one teams. Now, LSU was a team. LSU did a really good job of playing against Arkansas, and they're a pretty heavy cover one team. But I think you learn a little bit. I think this is one of those matchups that's actually okay for Texas, just because Taylon Green's not the most patient guy. He does want to press the ball downfield. He is a little bit more turnover prone, where he's gonna put the ball in some tough spots. But you're also gonna give up a lot of explosives, I would bet, on Saturday, because of what you guys talked about. This is a secondary that consistently busts. Really easy assignments too. Like, it's simple stuff like being a flat corner in Tampa when you're trapping, and knowing that you let the ball carry you there. Like, you got to squat underneath a go route to take away a hole shot, or being a middle run through player in Tampa and knowing you got to go through a full field read. You got to start with 2 to the field and go 2 to the boundary. Something like in cover 3, when you're a linebacker and you see a drag coming across your face, knowing to find the dig behind you, because every team runs some form of a levels concept, and Texas consistently does not do that. It's just a really, really poor technical and fundamental team defensively. So you'll see some explosives. They'll score some points, but they're also a really, really bad defense. And they give up just as many explosives. This is one of those games where Texas should score 35 plus. If they don't, a lot of things went wrong. They should be able to run the ball. Arkansas is horrible at running the ball, or Arkansas is horrible at stopping the run. So I'll take Texas to win. It'll be something like 35-24. I would take them to cover. I get what Josh is saying about Arkansas gets one every year, but those are typically at home and those are typically night games. They don't win the road games very often. And for as much as the Texas is reeling, you do need to win this game. And I think they know that because it's not completely over in terms of the playoff hunt, despite how much I think it should be. Like, I don't think Texas should be anywhere near the playoff, but I
No.
would bet today there's somewhere in that 15 range. And if you beat top three A&M team, you're going to get some serious consideration towards that 10 or 11 spot. So you got to be, Texas knows that. They'll be prepared on Saturday. I think they win. And a lot of it just comes down to the fact that Arkansas has the same problems Texas has, except just really amplified.
Let me ask you, if I told you that Anthony Hill was out, what would y'all say?
I think you'd be like, I don't think it's like it's not good for Texas, but this isn't one of those games that makes me like nervous for that. I'd be fine without him playing. I think this is also one of those games where you try moving Brad Spence back to backer because I do think he'd be comfortable with that. Um, I would be, yeah, I'd be okay with it. I don't think it's like a significant deal. Um, I wouldn't expect him to play anyway. But I think you'd be fine with Ty Anthony Smith, Leona Lafau, and Brad Spence and Trey Moore as your linebacking core, and being able to, because I think the emergence of Justice Terry is going to be really, really helpful in terms of being able to play Brad Spence now at linebacker, knowing that you can put Justice Terry out there, you can put Lance Jackson out there, you can put Zena out there. You'd be totally fine in terms of your pass rush. So you can move Brad Spence out to linebacker, and he's really comfortable in space. I thought he played well on Saturday. So Anthony Hill being out is not going to be like a massive thing, I would say, but it's definitely not. And also, you need him healthy for A&M. That is still like the game that you care the most about for Texas. So it's not like a deal breaker type of thing for me.
Yeah, just want to cover something real quick. Rankings obviously coming out live. We got put at 17. Kind of right around where I think we all expected, around like the 16 to 17, maybe 18 mark. I think they're keeping us in that realm where, I mean, there's a slight possibility to make the playoff, but I'm not gonna start touching on that or even consider that. But yeah, just wanted to say that since it was coming out live.
What if we had played that game close? What do you think it looks like?
You're probably at
think we make a
13,
playoff.
but
I think that's right. I think that's right.
you probably only fall 2 spots. We saw what they did with Iowa after Iowa lost. Texas would have been around. They wouldn't have dropped very much, I don't think. But they didn't play very close, and really, I don't think there was ever actually a moment where anyone like felt like Texas was going to win that game. You had a little bit of hope on 4th and 5, but even then, say Texas gets a stop, they still got to go. They still got to score a touchdown, and the only one they scored all game was off a really short field where they started at the 38, and they converted 2 third and longs on that drive, and I think that might have been their only 2 third down conversions all game.
They were, and I'll say this: I thought on that 4th and 1 before they went for it, and like before the fake happened, I thought they did the fullback dive. I thought we were going to win that game because I thought we could stop them, and I thought if we did, we would get a touchdown. But yeah, it was a lot closer than the score said for most of that game.
I thought so too. My opinion of it was Kirby needed to kill the momentum, and he did. And that's what good coaches do. They feel momentum shifts and they kill it. So that's what he did.
Yeah. I think we've said all we need to say about that game, so we can spend a little bit of time on these other games. OU Mizzou for me is pretty simple. I think Prebula might play. I don't remember. I might have misremembered something there, but I think this is a really bad matchup for Missouri because Drinkowitz said it right after the A&M game that he thought Elko just destroyed them in terms of his game plan. Brent Venables is Mike Elko, except like 50 times crazier. His pressure packages way more expansive than Elko. His coverage is a lot more expansive compared to Elko. This is one of those teams where if A&M gives you a lot of problems, OU is going to give you so many problems. And this is in Norman, right? This to me is just now the caveat to this is the OU offense is not good. It still isn't good. It's still a real problem for them. So there's a way Missouri makes this like a 10-3 game late and they get a turnover, or their defense gives them something where they get a stop and they get a score off of it. But barring the unexpected, I don't think this is going to be uber competitive. I do think OU is going to be fairly comfortable in this game and win.
Yeah, I agree with you on every point there. To be completely honest, I don't have too much more to say to this game than that. I think Oklahoma, we've seen the past couple weeks, they've really been on a roll. I think that they have a lot of momentum carrying them, even though their offense may not be super explosive. Their defense is really helping them in these games. They're really causing a lot of disruption for the other team's offense and getting them in good field position to get these points. So I'm not going to predict that OU's momentum is going to stop. I think they're going to keep on rolling, and I don't see them losing another game for the rest of the regular season. I think Oklahoma will win this game. I'm going to take it probably about 31-13. I think OU will be firing on all cylinders that day.
Wow, that's a lot of points for an OU team that can't score. Um, I looked at this, just looked at the over under on this. So it's 42 and a half. The spread's 8.5. I woke up yesterday and I said, I think Mizzou clips OU. And then I messaged everyone about it. And then I went to sleep and I woke up and I said, no, I'm not there. I think y'all may have talked me into it. This is an ugly game. I don't think there's going to be an uglier game on Saturday. So if you're a masochist, have fun with this one. If there's one bet that I would put on, I'd put my life on, it'd be under 42 and a half. That's a lot of points for this ugly game from two ugly offenses. Give me OU 24-10.
Yeah, that would be more where I feel. I think the only game that OU has scored more than 27 against Power 4 teams was that Tennessee game, and I'm pretty sure they had one or two defensive touchdowns. So I
Didn't they have
think
a special teams touchdown? I thought it was a special teams touchdown.
they had the R. Mason Thomas scoop and score. I
Yeah,
remember.
that's right.
They might have had one or two other. They had a lot of short fields, is all I remember.
That's
That's
right.
pretty much OU's only path to 30 points is a lot of short fields because Mateer doesn't look super healthy. I assume he's going to get more surgery done on his thumb after the season. From what I know, that was just a temporary screw that they put in, and they're going to have to do more work on it once he's done playing this year. But you can tell he's having to be a full body thrower. It looks really painful when he throws it. He's putting his entire body into stuff. And I think that's really, really impacted them in terms of just what they're able to do offensively. You watch them against Michigan and you watch them against Alabama. There's not a ton of difference, but the difference is Mateer, there's just certain throws he's just not making or not attempting right now that early in the year he was. And that's a really big difference for them because, again, they do struggle to protect Mateer. They're very young in terms of the two tackles, Fasusi and the other freshman whose name I'm forgetting right now. And they're really banged up on the inside. I think they've had a starter out almost every week. So they're not going to do a great job of protecting. And Missouri can get after the quarterback with Damon Wilson and Zion Young. That's a path to them winning. If you can force Mateer into a turnover or two like Texas did because of all the pressure that they had in that game, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that that Missouri wins. But I do agree with Joshy. Even if they do get turnovers, this is one of those games where you might turn a team over at the 50-yard line and you get 5 yards and you punt it because you just don't have a good enough offense to take advantage.
There's one way that Mizzou wins on offense, and they did it against A&M a little bit. And this is the way you're going to beat OU is if you establish outside zone.
Yes, I was actually going to just touch on this. This is the one thing that
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know much about OU's defense, one, DM me. I can give you like a 10-hour lecture on this. But one of the things they do with their front a lot is they run a lot of torch stunts. And all a torch stunt is I want you to imagine a 2-eye and a 3 technique, right? And again, just picture that right here is the center. What the 3 technique is going to do is he's going to work to pick the hip, the near hip of the center to displace him, and then you're going to have the 2-eye wrap around it. And what teams do, why they do this, why they run a torch stunt, and it's very similar to a ton stunt. So if anyone wants to understand the mechanisms of it, go to my Twitter, Pack Talks XO, scroll down for a bit. I have an entire thread on a mint ton package that Oregon has. Read through that. You'll figure that it'll be a lot easier for you to understand. But the entire point of a torch or ton stunt is you're trying to force the ball a specific way. Because if you're a running back and you see your center get picked and a gap get blown up, you're gonna cut back, right? That's just the natural thing to do because half of the play side now looks disgusting. So you're gonna want to cut back. But what ends up happening is you have a wrapping nose tackle, and he's able to then play the back. And this is why OU gets so many tackles for loss. And this is why you see OU have a ton of guys in the backfield where it feels like no one's blocking them. It's because they run a lot of stunts, they run a lot of games, they run pop stunts, they run jab stunts, they run jam stunts. Again, all things you can find on my Twitter, but they are really, really exotic. The problem is when you run outside zone, a lot of that is nullified because that's more about getting space. The ball's not going downhill. And so when you run a torch stunt, you end up really working to the leverage of someone in outside zone because they're trying to reach you, right? If you're right here and this is the guard, he's trying to end up like this, where he's blocking you into the backside to open up this gap here. And when you run a ton stunt and you end up here, you've made their job really easy and you've displaced a gap. Does that make sense? Right? Like you end up going the entire point of outside zone, and why you see so many holding calls with outside zone is again, imagine this is the defensive end. Imagine this is a tackle. When he's reaching out and he's trying to get here, eventually at some point you're gonna hold and you're gonna yank him inside. Especially if it's a good athlete. But if you rip inside and you naturally give the tackle the ability to reach you and seal you off, it's a lot easier for teams, and this is what OU gets themselves in trouble with a lot, is because they stunt so much, they end up crashing inside on gaps, and they make it easier to block you in terms of outside zone. This is why Texas has had a lot of success against them, and this is why Joshy was mentioning that Missouri could have success against them in the run game. It's because Mizzou does run outside zone, and they do a really good job of it. So there's a non-zero chance that Missouri runs for 4 yards. It's just the problem is you don't trust their pass game at all. But if Mizzou runs for 5 yards a carry or 4 yards a carry, and they get 200 yards, they'll win the game. I don't think it's going to be to that extent. But it's a good point that Joshy made. I think that pretty much wraps up everything that we have in terms of OU Mizzou. Joshy, did you say you would take the OU cover, or would you pick Mizzou to cover?
Give me the OU cover.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that, and you know, my warning would be this: if Ahmad Hardy hits triple digits, OU's in trouble.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Before we head out, Josh, do you have any other bets that you like this week? Let the people know if there's anything that you like or that you think people should be taking a look at.
So I was looking at this Cincinnati, BYU. BYU's on the road in Cincinnati, and they are a 2.5 point favorite. I love that. I don't like Cincy at all. I think I like BYU a little bit more than most people do. That doesn't mean I would pick them over an SEC team, but these guys are fighting for their playoff life at this point. I just don't see, and really what it is right now up until the Big 12 championship, what BYU and ultimately Tech are going to end up doing is doing the style points, right? Because they have to. I think Tech's probably safe. The BYU question is going to be a style points thing. I think 2.5 is way too small. I would bet that I think I'd take that up to 6.5. So I think there's a lot of arbitrage there you can get. So give me BYU minus 2.5.
Nice. Got anything else, or are those your three favorite bets of the week?
Georgia Tech Pitt. Give me Georgia Tech minus 2.5. I think that's another good one. I mean, look, that ACC is just so terrible, and I think Pat Narduzzi saying we could go out and lose by 100 to Notre Dame was a maybe the worst thing you could have ever said because you're and you know, being on a former, being part of a football team, if I ever had a coach telling someone we could lose to Notre Dame or whatever team by 100 and still be fine, that would tell me, okay, you think, we're garbage. And I think Georgia Tech, I really like Haynes King. Obviously Blake Gideon, former Longhorn secondaries coach, now defensive coordinator. Defense isn't great, but I still like them a little bit more than I like Pitt. So give me that. Bart, my good friend Bart, had a really good question on Tech. I think their defensive line is for real. I think Jacob Rodriguez is for real. He's nuts. I don't think that means that they are an actual contender. I think there are 5 to 6 teams that can win. They would not be one of them I would pick.
Yeah, so this will be the last thing we touch on today. I'll let Clint go, and then I'll hit my last point, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so I've watched a lot of Texas Tech this year, and they're a very good team. You can say what you want about the Big 12 and it compared to the Big 10 of the SEC. At the end of the day, they have the ability to compete with the best of the best in the Big 10 and SEC. Does that mean they're going to win those games? Maybe not, but they definitely have the ability to make it a competitive game. They have one of the best defenses in the country, arguably the best defensive line, depending on how you look at it. You mentioned Jacob Rodriguez, who may end up being a Heisman finalist. I don't know if that's just a fan thing or something, but he's very good. The only question I have for them is their offense. Ever since they've lost Will Hammond, they've lost that touch on offense. But also, you saw at UCF where they were able to get 48 points. So maybe they have found somewhat of a spark with Barry Morton again. But I think they're a for real team. I think that they could possibly make the second round, maybe make the semifinal. But I don't know about that. I don't know if I'll pick that. But I definitely think they're for real. I think they will win the Big 12, and I think that they are a serious team and can make a serious run in the playoff.
Yeah, so my take on Tech is I think the defense is really good. They do a really good job in terms of they're predominantly like almost every team in college football. They're a middle field close. They're going to play a lot of cover one. They're going to do it from press. Mostly from press, you'll see them play with an inch technique a lot, which if you're not familiar, the way that works is keep your feet start here, right, and press. They'll take a six inch step to whatever side their leverage is. So let's just say this is my outside foot and I'm playing outside leverage. You'll see them take 6 inches here, and then you'll see them slowly inch back. That's why it's called an inch technique. And then once a receiver declares what side they're going to, they're going to use their opposite arm. So if a receiver crossed my face going this way, I'd take my inside arm and I'd shoot it out on the chest. I would reroute and I would play press from there, right? That's all an inch technique is. They play a lot of that in terms of when they're playing press man. They'll play some cover three. They're pretty much a middle field closed team, like every team in college football right now. Their defensive line's awesome. David Bailey, if you ever get access to the All-22, just spend like 5 minutes watching David Bailey. Some of the most fun tape you'll find. His motor, his technique, his bend, his speed. It's all so much fun to watch. He's one of the best pass rushers in the country, if not the best. Romello Heights is really good. Lee Hunter's really good. The linebacker, Rodriguez, is one of the 5 best linebackers in the entire country. They're really well schooled in terms of what they're doing. But I would caution everyone on their defense. they're not very fast. They're really long, and they're really strong. They are not very fast, and that's going to give them some problems because they play a lot of base. They play a lot of 3-4 and a lot of 4-3 stuff. Um, and you have to be careful doing that in the playoff against some of the teams that they would play. Like right now, they would be projected to play Tulane, and then they would play Georgia after. You cannot play base against Georgia. You will get murdered. They are way too fast. And so that's the problem with Tech is they've got a really good Big 12 defense. They've got a really good defense in general, but they lack team speed, and that's going to be a real problem for them. And then, like Joe Zura said in the comments, the offense is not good. It is not good at all. They're an air raid team. I think Clint, you would know more about that. I haven't watched them in a while. Um, Morton doesn't have a good feel for the pocket. You'll find that out pretty quick. He's a drifter. If you talk to me long enough, you'll know I hate drifting quarterbacks. It doesn't work. You consistently put yourself in terrible situations. He doesn't know how to step up into the pocket, which is a problem. They've got really good running backs. They're okay at wide receiver. I think Zura's right that they're not. This isn't a title contender. Clint's right. There's 7 or 8 teams that are better than them in terms of if they played, I'd pick them. But they're really good for a Big 12 team. They're legit in terms of as a playoff contender, not as a title contender though.
I did want to touch line. They do run an air raid, so just want to say you're right.
Yeah. So Joe, you can find us at just look up Total Coverage Sports. I can give you the link really quick, or Clint if you have it. Either one of us.
I'll drop the Twitter's down below.
And then in terms of the YouTube, let me find it really quick. Yeah, honestly, just look up Total Coverage Sports. It's at Total Coverage Sports. I'll put it in the comments really quick. There you go. Joe, that's it right there. And then those are our two different ads, I guess. But you can go find us there, Total Coverage Sports. We show up every Tuesday from 7 to about 8:30, depending on how long Clint and I want to talk or how long I want to talk. But we talk Texas every week. We talk the biggest games every week. Every once in a while, I'll break down some film. During the off season, I'll talk to you guys about whatever concept you guys want. Whether that's if you guys want to learn more about Cover 3, if you want to learn about how teams play quarters, that works too. If you want to learn how teams play press man, pretty much every week during the off season, I will explain whatever concept you guys want from a coverage. I could tell you what, if you've ever heard Kirby Smart talk about a stack fit and you've wondered what he was talking about, I could tell you that. If you wanted to know what linebacker footwork looks like, pretty much anything during the offseason, we'll have some show for you guys about that. I can show you guys a ton of tape on different stuff. If you don't know, in terms of Clint, he has an offensive background. I have a defensive background. I learned the Saban system. I've got a lot of the Georgia and Oregon and Alabama and Florida and all those teams. I have their installs. I have game plans from them. I've talked to those guys quite frequently. So that's the system I'm comfortable with. Clint knows a lot about offenses, and we're just talk a lot of football on this channel. So really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you, Joshy, for being here. We went really long. Thank you, David, and have a good night, guys. Please like, subscribe, comment, retweet, do all the different things you can to help the channel grow. We just hit 1K subscribers on YouTube, which is awesome. So